All right. Tonight I'm going to be talking about plaster casts and art education. As you can see in this picture, plaster casts can be used to teach drawing. And you basically look at the plaster cast to learn about the human form. So what exactly is one of these plaster casts that are used for drawing instruction? They are very simple. They've been used for hundreds of years. It's an anatomical rendition of the human body, usually. Although plaster cast exists for all kinds of animals, masks, busts, architecture, natural objects, and geometric shapes. And they're used primarily to teach how to draw forms without the distracting surface details. It's easier to see how to render a three-dimensional object into 2 dimensions. Here are some more examples of some plaster casts. What is this history of cast drawing? There is a history behind this. It started during the Renaissance, when artists who were students wanted to become masterful in their craft. They would find famous sculptures and draw from the sculptures. The idea was that the fewer surface details made it easier to learn the 2-dimensional rendering skill needed to move on to copy paintings. Copying paintings was the next step in this process of becoming a masterful painter. And so for hundreds of years, this is what people did. In Europe, the number of artists increased through the centuries, however, and a dilemma arose. How can all of the art students have access to the best and most inspiring artworks? And people solved this problem by making plaster copies of famous sculptures throughout Europe, and they would transport them to different locations. Up until around 1900, this was very common. This was a common practice. Here is an example. Vassar College in 1866 acquired a large collection of plaster pieces. The first art professor at Vassar, Henry their museum. The thing is, in the 20th century, people rethought the plaster cast drawing tradition because of photography and other forms of technology development. In particular, there was a very influential work by Walter Benjamin in 1935. The work of art in the age of mechanics.
Tamara, you've frozen. So you just started talking about Walter Benjamin. Maybe you want to go back to that point when you unfreeze.
Okay. I think my internet just cut out. Are we back? Yeah, okay.
Yes, and you were just saying something about Walter Benjamin and
Walter
then
Benjamin, yes. All right. So today's European museums really offer few casts of their famous works, or they don't even offer any at all. Because so many museums threw out their entire collections of these wonderful plaster copies that they had. But the tradition does survive. One example is Pergamon's altar, the Gigantomachy frieze, Hellenistic 2nd century BC. I remember seeing this for the first time. I was lucky to see it in person back in high school because my sister took a trip to Germany with her German friend for a couple of weeks after she graduated from college. And she said, "Hey, come along." And I said, "Oh, wow. Yeah, sure." The thing is, you have to really be there to appreciate the 3 dimensions. And this made a very deep impression on me when I saw this piece. Apparently, it has been rather contested throughout history. During World War II, after many artworks were destroyed in Europe, the Red Army took it to St. Petersburg from 1945 to 1958. Fortunately, casts had been done in 1890, but still, it would not have solved the problem if this wonderful piece of art had actually been destroyed. So fortunately, we still have it today. And 700 molds exist of this wonderful artwork, and they get about 100 to 200 orders per year from art educators or artists or designers. The Gips for Mary workshop is the Berlin State Museum group who coordinates this process of making copies of this wonderful piece of art. And the thing is that nowadays it is forbidden to make direct copies from the artwork itself. And what they have done is developed a laser scanning technique that they have combined with traditional mold making to make these plaster casts. A recent purchase by the China Academy of Art in Hangzhou took them 2 years to do. And so they are still getting a lot of business. I want to close with a quotation from The Economist magazine, where I initially found this interesting article about the Gigantomachy frieze and the new forms of reproduction. The idea that a historic mold can preserve an artwork's DNA has led to the reassessment of the Gips for Mary by the Berlin State Museums. I think that there's so many wonderful metaphors that this piece has in terms of its historical value, as well as its current value to us as we continue to reinterpret ourselves in relation to our artworks. I want to just show you a few more pieces, a few more examples of some of the details of this work. I would encourage you, if you're ever in Europe, to make a trip to see this wonderful artwork. Thank you.